College football week 2 is in full effect. Early morning games, your 11 o'clock slate games are all in the books now. Your afternoon slate games are slowly finishing up. We'll get to those at a later time. Real quick, wanted to talk about the week 2 11 a.m. kickoff game. Starting off, Penn State didn't look impressive. I'm putting Penn State on fraud alert. I don't think this Penn State team is good as they were last year. I don't think this Penn State team is a team that should be in the playoffs, to be quite frank with you. They beat Florida International today 20-0. I'm sorry, 34-0. Mid-third quarter, it was 20-0 before they actually was able to pull away and get two more scores to make it 34-0. I don't have much faith in this Penn State team. I never had faith in Drew Aller. After watching him in the playoffs last year, I just don't believe in Drew Aller. He's not a guy that I feel like against the big teams, against the quality teams, is gonna make the throws you need to make. I don't trust him. Something about James Franklin and big teams I can't trust. I don't really think they're a team that can beat any good teams this year. I mean, dude, Florida International, you got to go out and hang about 40, 50 on them. You got to hang 50 points on them, you know. There's no need for you to have 20 points in the third quarter against Florida International if you're considered a playoff team like Penn State is. I just don't see it. I don't see it. They're definitely in fraud territory for me. Next up, Baylor SMU. Baylor gets the upset. Man, that was a barn burner. Back and forth, fireworks. On both offenses going tick for tack. What killed SMU, field goal misses. Their kicker, Kyler Rogers, 1 for 4. Then late had a chance to win the game in the fourth quarter, lost it. Then missed a crucial field goal in overtime. Can't have that, you know. That's just the nature of the beast. You can't have that. Hate it for the guy, but Baylor gets the win. Good quality win for Baylor. SMU is gonna hurt them. You know, how good is this Baylor team? This is a loss that could potentially hurt SMU's playoff chances, you know. I feel like SMU has to run the table now. If they want to get a shot at the playoffs, they'll have to win the ACC, you know. I know they said they're not going to put too much into conference championships, too much weight into that in terms of if you make the playoffs. But, you know, you look at a loss like Baylor, you know, the same Baylor team that lost to Auburn, you know, how good is this Baylor team, you know? So, good win for Baylor, though. Good quality win to go into Southern Methodist and get this win. Good quality win for them. You know, Illinois Duke. Started out tight game at first. Definitely was a tight game. Duke came out swinging. Illinois came out swinging. But Luke showed up. You know, Luke Meyer showed up. You know, I feel like he played a good game. 22 for 31. 71% completion rating, 296 yards, 3 TDs, you know. He came to play, you know, and it showed. They ended up getting that W 45-19. Illinois is looking good right now. Illinois is looking like a contender right now. We still early, week 2. You know, they'll get tested soon. They got kind of a relaxed, not really relaxed, but they got kind of a lesser game next week against Western Michigan, but after that you get at Indiana and USC. So we'll see how really good this Illinois team is. I feel like with this win, they'll definitely still be within the top 12. They might even, depend on what's going on in the top 10, they could potentially get into the top 10. Brett Bielema, there's a lot of hype around this program. Defense is solid. You got some quality playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. You know, you got some good guys. Gabe Jacobs, Tamare Duraroje. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Gentle Hunt, named by Gentle Hunt, playing on the D-line. You know, but it is what it is. But you got guys like that on the defensive side for Illinois. This Illinois team is looking good. You know, 2-0 right now. They'll get Western Michigan, like I said, and after that, they'll get get Indiana first at Indiana, and they'll get USC. We'll get to really see how good this Illinois team is. Can they compete for a Big Ten title? You know, they do got Ohio State down the road. One thing about Illinois, which is a good thing for them, they don't play Oregon. You know, they don't play Penn State. You know, all they got, their biggest test is going to be Ohio State. We don't know how good USC is, so of course Indiana's going to give them a good game, but their biggest test is going to be Ohio State. So that'll be an interesting game to watch, in my opinion. After that, Iowa State, good defensive game. Iowa State wins this rivalry, 16-13, last second field goal. I think their head coach Matt Campbell said it best. We sleep better at night because we know Rocco Beck is in the house. They sleep better because they know they got a good quarterback. He played good again today, just like he has been the past 2 weeks. He's played good. Iowa State looking like they're going to be right back in the Big 12 contention. Iowa got to find some offense. That's been the thing for Iowa. Can't get out. They don't have offense. Mark Gronkowski, he looked okay, but overall, it didn't look, impressive. Obviously, he only got 13 points. He couldn't score no touchdowns. 13 completions over 24 attempts, only 83 yards. Couldn't get nothing going on offense. So Iowa's got to figure it out. They have to figure out that offense if they're going to want to, be successful this year. Texas versus San Jose State. I stated earlier. What kind of game Archie Manning going to have? Same old same. A lot of people are going to look back and say, oh, he scored 5 touchdowns. I'm going to look at it and say, you look at 295 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. Yeah, that looks good, but now you got to see it again. One thing I noticed watching the game, a lot of misconnection with his receivers. I'm not sure if it's just the play calling, receivers not running deep enough or close enough on their routes, or is it just misconnections where he's not setting his feet properly? A couple of plays, I look back, he didn't set his feet properly, missed throws. Then of course, the other side of that coin, a lot of his receivers just dropped the ball. They have to get that figured out. You got UTEP, and after that, Sam Houston. You got 2 more games to gel that together. O-line looked better this week, but of course, you got to take into account the competition. But you want to see that growth, and we saw growth from them. They bet UTEP next week. We'll see how they look against UTEP next week. I'm expecting them to keep trending upward, so we'll just see. But he still has a lot of room to grow. Yes, it was a good performance. A lot of people are going to hype him up, but you got to take into account the competition, and also also he got to work on the connection with his receivers. So you got to take the 2 things into account. You got to work on those 2 things right there before they get into the SEC slate of games. UConn, Syracuse won in overtime, 27-20 against UConn. This Syracuse team has really disappointed me so far. I was expecting a lot of things from Fran Brown. I was expecting him to have a good squad this year. They're struggling so far. They gave Tennessee a good fight, but so far they've been struggling. UConn had a chance to win this game. UConn could have won this game. Syracuse was able to escape. I think the biggest thing that stood out to me was Syracuse can score points. Their offense can score points. That's Steve Angeli, as you guys know, came from Notre Dame. Kind of shocked me that he didn't end up being the starter at Notre Dame, but he transferred to Syracuse. He looks good so far. Syracuse has to get on that, has to do better on defense. With Fran Brown being a defensive-minded coach coming from Georgia, you would expect the defense to be better. They haven't shown it yet. They got to be better. I think last week you allowed 45 points to Tennessee. You can't allow that to happen. This week, you allowed. Of course, you got the W, but I feel like this Syracuse team should have held UConn in check more. And then that doesn't shy away. And then I'm not gonna take away from Jim Moore and what he's doing at UConn. UConn won 9 games last year. He's trying to put UConn back on the map as an independent. We all know Notre Dame is the big dog when it comes to independent schools. Jim Moore is trying to put UConn back on the map. With their schedule, they got a chance to win another 9 games, potentially 10 games. Their toughest test after this is Duke. They don't really have a lot of quality opponents, so they can mess around and get 10 wins. They had 9 last year. They could potentially get that double-digit win season this year with the way they played today against Syracuse. So we'll just have to go and see. Finally, Delaware and Colorado. That man Deion played 3 quarterbacks. I was not expecting that. We already knew that Keaton Sloton and Julian Sands was going to play, but I was not expecting them to roll with 3 quarterbacks. I'm sorry, I said Keaton Sloton. I meant Caden Salter. We knew he was going to come out and start. We knew Julian Lewis was going to get playing time. We did not know Ryan Staub was gonna get playing time. He came in and he looked the best out of the 3 quarterbacks. What does this mean going forward? He's probably going to be the starting quarterback next week when they play Houston. Plain and simple. He's going to be their starting quarterback. Deion did say that he's planning on keeping 3 quarterback system going, but you got to read between the lines. You got a hot hand like Ryan's. You got to keep it going. Yeah, but the thing about it is the transfer portal is a real thing. And Deion knows that. And I think Deion doesn't want to lose neither one of these quarterbacks. Well, Caden, I think this is Caden's last year, so it really he's going to be gone regardless. So really, you're just looking at not losing Julian losing his services next year. So Deion's going to definitely incorporate the 3 quarterbacks, and Julian Lewis especially, because he doesn't want to lose Lewis. He's just a freshman. Ryan is a sophomore. He's already been in that system before with Pat Shurmur. So, but he looked the best. He gave him a shot to win. If he didn't play, would they have still won this game? Who knows? Yes, maybe. No, we're not for sure. That's one of those what if questions. But we don't like to dabble in what ifs. Ryan came in, lit it on fire. 7 completions on 10 attempts for 157 yards, 2 TDs. Salter 13 completions on 16 attempts for 102 yards, a rushing TD, and then Lewis was just 2 attempts for 2 completions for 4 attempts for just 8 yards. He didn't really get much. A lot of his passes when Lewis was in was left and right, were a lot of lateral stuff, nothing really downfield. Probably Pat Shurmur trying to ease him in, but when Ryan Staub got in, he let it rip. Deep completion down the sideline. A lot of deep throws. I think Sincere Brown led the receivers in catches. Not catches. I'm sorry. He led the receivers in receiving yards with 120 yards on 4 receptions, 4 targets. Ryan wasn't afraid to let it rip. You got to ask yourself how much of the play calling that Pat Shurmur opened up. How much of the playbook did he open up for Ryan compared to Lewis? Because, like I said, you go back and look at the tape. Lewis, a lot of his completions were left to right, little dink and dunk stuff. But like I said, he only got 2 completions on 4 attempts. So I feel like Pat Shurmur just opened up the playbook more for Salter and Staub. So. But as of now, I feel like Ryan Staub is going to be the starting quarterback. I hope I'm saying his last name right. But he's going to be the starting quarterback going forward. So far, good day of college football. Rolling along right now. We'll see how the rest of the day goes. But so far, good day.